Trump following the same well-worn path blazed by past terrorist leaders. And, you know, I start out with a story of this guy, Craig Robertson, who was shot and killed by the FBI yesterday in Provo, Utah. You know, the day I believe it's today that Biden is going to Utah. Maybe it was yesterday afternoon. It was this week, in any case. And, you know, this guy had made clear in Facebook posts that he had a sniper rifle, that he had a jelly suit, I think it's called, or ghillie suit, that he was ready. He was going to come out and he was going to try and kill Biden. And he also said that he wanted to kill Alvin Bragg. He wanted to kill Vice President Kamala Harris. And you know, that the election was stolen. I mean, he was a full-on Trump believer. He believed all of Donald Trump's lies. Donald Trump's lie that the election was stolen from him, when in fact Donald Trump lost the election by 7 million votes. Donald Trump's lie that Joe Biden is behind his prosecution, when in fact, you know, Merrick Garland dithered for 2 years, and now there's a special prosecutor who is independent of the Justice Department. They can fire him, but that's it. They have no control over him. Just like with Archibald Cox and Richard Nixon, just like with Ken Starr and Bill Clinton, this is how it works. But Trump is lying about that. Trump is trying to pollute the jury pool. Trump and Nauta and this other guy, what is it, De Vieira, Olivia De Vieira, whatever his name is. Anyhow, the third guy, you know, the guy who was in charge of the security footage down in Florida, they were just arraigned like an hour ago in Florida on these superseding indictments. The third guy, the security footage guy, didn't have a local lawyer, so he's going to have to come back, I believe, tomorrow or maybe Tuesday of next week. But in any case, you've got Donald Trump out here openly promoting lies. In fact, this guy, you know, who got shot in Provo, Utah, he said, perhaps Utah will become famous this week as the place a sniper took out Biden the Marxist. He said this, you know, 2 days after Donald Trump called Joe Biden a Marxist. This guy's paying careful attention to what Trump is saying. In openly encouraging this kind of rage and violence, Donald Trump is following a well-worn path that has been blazed by many terrorist leaders before him. Osama bin Laden, for example, never killed anybody. He didn't even pay for 9/11. He didn't hatch the scheme. That was Mohammed Atta came up with the plan. Bin Laden, in fact, didn't even know exactly what was going to happen, how it was going to happen, or where it was going to happen, or when it was going to happen until it happened. But his rhetoric is what inspired it. And that's why we held him responsible for it. I mean, he later took responsibility for it. In 2004, he came out and bragged about it. But, you know, as John Miller for ABC News said, bin Laden didn't pay for the World Trade Center bombing or the plot to kill Bill Clinton, but he thought they were good ideas. Bin Laden inspired the attack with his rhetoric, the same way that Donald Trump is inspiring attacks with his rhetoric. ABC News did a deep dive into this back in 2020. This was in May of 2020. Now, keep in mind, that was 3 years ago, so there's been a heck of a lot more incidents that you can add to this. But this is what ABC News wrote. First off, had Barack Obama or George W. Bush, the two most recent presidents before Donald Trump, 16 years between the two of them, had, you know, both of them had said a lot of controversial things. Had either one of them caused anybody in America to commit an act of terror in the name of either George W. Bush or Barack Obama? ABC News did a deep dive into this, and they wrote, quote, ABC News could not find a single criminal case filed in federal or state court where an act of violence or threat was made in the name of President Barack Obama or President George W. Bush. Okay, so we'll just clear the decks here. No president, and I think I can safely say this, you know, outside of the Confederacy, and of course we didn't have a president of the United States who was in the Confederacy, but outside of the Confederacy, no president, and to the best of my knowledge, no politician in American history has ever actually encouraged terror, encouraged stochastic terrorism, encouraged terrorist violence, encouraged murders. So back to ABC News, and I quote, but a nationwide review conducted by ABC News has identified at least 54 criminal cases where Donald Trump was invoked in direct connection with violent acts, threats of violence, or allegations of assault. And that was just from 2015 when he announced his candidacy up until April 30th of 2020. That was long before 9/11 or before January 6th. ABC News notes the 54 cases identified by ABC News are remarkable in that they link to a link to the president is captured in court documents and police statements under the penalty of perjury or contempt. These links are not speculative. They are documented in official records. And in the majority of cases identified by ABC News, it was perpetrators themselves who invoked the president in connection with their case, not anyone else. Raw Story yesterday had a headline, "Just the beginning. Ex-FBI official warns more assassins could be inspired by Trump." This has never happened here before. No president has ever invited a mob to attack other politicians, to attack Washington, D.C., and terrorize lawmakers. That led to the death of 9 people. Donald Trump has not only not apologized for that, but he now plays a song that he sings with the prisoners, the terrorists from January 6th, at all of his rallies. He has never once condemned any of the murders, the attempted murders and bombings, or other acts of violence that have been perpetrated in his name. Instead, what we hear from him is that, well, there's very good people on both sides. And now that he's facing possibility of time in prison for his crimes, Trump is encouraging the wannabe and weekend terrorists in his base, and they are out there. I mean, you know they're out there because they've been killing people, to murder witnesses, prosecutors, and judges overseeing his cases. And perhaps more important, he wants to influence jurors, whether he's just trying to get his story out there for them or whether he's trying to terrify them. If you come after me, I'll come after you. Remember that? Why is it that our newspapers and media don't call Donald Trump a terrorist? I mean, they're so behind the curve. The first 3 years of his presidency, when he told over 25,000 documented lies, it wasn't until the 3rd or 4th year of his presidency that the media started using the word lies to describe Donald Trump's actions. I mean, that's pretty crazy when you think about it. It took him 3 years. And now he's saying he wants to release information that could be used to target people who have investigated him, who have testified against him, or who might serve on the jury that could condemn him. This is terrorism. And I think it's time that we start calling this guy a terrorist. You know, Rachel Maddow, and they've turned it into a promo over on MSNBC. She says words to the effect of, history is not going to ask, how could a president of the United States have been prosecuted? History is going to ask, how could a man worthy of prosecution been elected president? And of course, we know the answer. Putin put Paul Manafort in charge of Trump's campaign. Paul Manafort had just put Yanukovych in charge of Ukraine. He came here to the United States to put Trump in charge of the United States. Both Yanukovych and Trump were puppets for Vladimir Putin. Trump had taken, a fortune from Putin's oligarchs. Over 1,400 cash transactions for Trump properties. Saved his butt in the 90s. The Russians. As both of his sons has told us. Robert Mueller laid this out. By the way, Merrick Garland still hasn't released the unredacted version of the Mueller report. What the hell is up with that? I mean, Manafort didn't even ask for a paycheck. And what was he doing while he was running Trump's campaign? He was taking internal polling data about where and in which states they needed to influence people to vote for Trump or to vote against Clinton or simply not to show up to vote if they were Clinton voters, Democrats. He was passing that information along to Russian intelligence, and Russian intelligence was using that information to target, with over 29 million social media posts from Yevgeny Prigozhin's Internet Research Agency, right out of the Kremlin, 29 million posts that were liked over 126 million times. in those 7 states, or in particular in the 3 states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Had Trump lost those 3 states, Hillary Clinton would have been president. And that was a total of 77,000 votes. Influenced by Russia. That's how we got Donald Trump. That's how we got a terrorist as president of the United States. Let's call it that.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I think it's time to speak truth about what's going on.